So I'm working on SumoMe for a client site, and I need some help. I've got some questions. I've discovered a couple things along the way, but for the lack of a better way to do this, I'm making a quick video partly to show what I've learned, which might help other people, but also to show where my confusion is because I'm hoping to get some feedback on how to do this better. So I'm in SumoMe. I'm looking at a client site on the back end. This is for a voiceover site for a friend and client named Dave Courvoisier. And when I come into SumoMe, this was set up a long time ago, and the system's changed a bit since then. We need to change some things. There are some pop-ups that we need to turn off because they're too large and they don't comply with some of the things that Google is recommending for mobile sites these days. But there's also some stuff that we need to improve on the website. We're getting ready to redesign the site, and we want to use things like heat maps in there. So I go into my apps, or I've done this. I've gone into my apps. And from here, we had a number of things that were just turned on when this system was originally set up a couple of years back. And I went into heat maps the other day trying to turn on heat maps so that I could gather some data about how people are using the current site. So I went into heat maps, and I see this button. Now this is one of the areas where I initially get confused. I'm in the back end of WordPress, and I've already realized that this is a bit of a mistake. And I look at this, and I see that it says stop recording, so it must mean that it is recording. So I want to view my active campaign for this page to see some results or something like that. And when I click that, there's nothing. And that's partly because this is where I've learned my confusion was getting in the way. This would be akin to trying to keep a heat or to make a heat map on this back end, which is not what I want. And it kind of stalls the whole app out a little bit. And so I need to kind of refresh the dashboard to get back in here and start over and do it again. Now, going a couple steps further, there are some menu items over here. If you go to the actual SumoMe website, they'll tell you that these menu buttons mean there's campaigns and settings and auto record. Pretty much what the labels here say. I did not find that helpful at all. So if I look at my campaign, I want to come in here and click on this, but clicking on that only gives me the option to rename it. If I view the campaign, it again dumps me into this no man's land of nothing happening. And I have to refresh the dashboard to get back into this section and try again. I've failed one more time. So if I go back in here to my apps, and eventually I get into settings, I can see that I've got some settings kicked in here. I don't want to track any specific page query strings or any other parameters at the moment. I do want to track all clicks. So this is kind of how I need it to be. I know that right now. If I go to auto record, earlier I had struggled with this because I don't find this user interface easy to understand what's going on here. But there are several different rules that we can set up, apparently. This is an area of confusion, so if you have any insights into how to use these rules better or some examples of how to use them better, I'd love to see them. But I know or I've learned that I can come in here and I can click on sets to see the sets that I have. I have 2 sets. As far as I can tell, they're identical, clones or something like that. Basically, one of these sets has set it up such that I track, this is a heat map, I track heat maps on all pages on the website per this particular record here. This is something that I added to the rule. I have no exceptions or anything else at the moment. I'm curious as to what would be useful in this regards, or some other good examples so that I could see how to benchmark and grow this. But this is what I have at the moment. I probably don't need 2 sets. But I have a set 2 and a set 3. There was a 1 and some others as well. I've deleted those out. I'm working on the Safari browser at the moment. I go back and forth between it and Chrome. Sometimes this interface gets a little confusing with scrolling as well. I point this out just from the perspective of this is a pop-up, but you can't quite see that this is a pop-up. So instead of hitting save here, you don't want to do that. You want to hit the X to make that go away. The save button is for this page here with the auto record rules. So here's where my heat maps actually exist. So if I go into an actual, this is a blog article on the current website. This is the old layout design of the site from a few years back. You'll notice over here we have the SumoMe buttons running. One is for content analytics and one is for show heat maps. So if I hit show heat maps, it's going to load in the activity on the site. And as you scroll down, eventually we get to the comments section, I believe. And then the heat map shows up, so we can actually see activity here down here in the comments section. I believe there's a faster way to see that. You'll notice there's a little hover over thing here. I can also come in and show my elements, and as I go to any of these elements that had activity, the comments box or the submit button for comments, we see this. So this is useful for a couple reasons. Just as a quick aside or example, I can see that people are leaving comments in the WordPress version of comments. We also have Facebook comments turned on, but they didn't use it on this particular article. We do see people using that, but on this particular article, they're going to the default WordPress. Over here, we've also got the content analytics. As you may recall, let me turn this off. So we have our we have some other analytics as well. This took me a long time to figure out how to get this to show up, but it just is, and it shows how much people have read. So we can see that 20 or 30% bailed in the early part, but actually no, there's so this on the left. I think this is a percentage of the content, as the SumoMe app tries to understand how much of the content is there. And over on the right, it's supposed to track how many people have viewed this particular thing. Now, we've had 7 page views on this today, but I think I got this content analytics turned on after these folks had read this. I think the heat maps was working, but not the content analytics. And so it's showing nobody read the article, or nobody made it that far, even though I happen to know that people did get down to the bottom and leave a comment. So I think that's what is going on there. So I'll be looking for some more accurate analytics, in a day or two after we've got better data. So, long story short, I'm struggling to work with this interface and understand it. I'd love to see some people that have a solid workflow with this. If you've done a video on SumoMe yourself and how to use it or how to use it well, I'd like to see that workflow just to have a better idea of how to go through here. We have a lot of things that are turned on. There's a SumoMe video that kind of actually recommends just turning on the top 7 things. But at this point in time, I can't always identify, as I'm looking back through it, when these things are firing or when they're not firing, and whether or not we still want them to fire and things of that nature. So I'm hoping to also dig in and try to identify where these things are, when they're firing, because they were set up years ago and it's kind of been running on autopilot. And so, it's kind of like doing some forensic work here. So if you got any experience with SumoMe, or if you know of some videos or some tutorials, anything, I'd love to take a look at it. I do like the examples that SumoMe provides, but I have not had a whole lot of, I haven't enjoyed their help. Their help section seems to be a little lacking. I get the impression that they're in the midst of rebooting this, and there's just not a whole lot of useful content here. If you go to the Getting Started and try to take a look at content analytics, this is really generic jargon in here, and there's not a whole lot of examples. It tells you things like this is the sidebar menu, and that's pretty obvious to me already. I don't necessarily need to know that it's a sidebar menu. I need to know how to use it, which one to click on first, and things of that nature. So this is a challenge as I come in here to the SumoMe area. I've also researched their YouTube channel, and I'm not finding a whole lot there. I've even found some videos that reference prerequisite videos, things that you'd need to watch first, and those original videos don't exist anymore. So struggling, hoping to find some information. If you have some insights into this or can point me in a better direction, I'd love it. Thank you much.